Happy Spiritual Sunday from the Kabbalah Centre of Boca Raton. So I found something from Karen Berg, Simple Light. Tell me if you can relate. The journey to become more spiritual doesn't happen without some kind of pain. Right? Doesn't have to be major pain. I'm not reading for it just as a side note, but we have to be uncomfortable with some aspect of ourselves. Otherwise, you wouldn't seek change, would you? In other words, like we often talk about, that opponent in our head that we programmed to be our challenger, to make us appreciate all of our blessings, until we wake up, it helps us justify all of our reactive behavior. Our actions of anger, jealousy, or guilt, or shame, or ego, or fear is justified in our mind. So we don't see a reason to make any change. We have to wake up at some point, some aspect of spiritual evolution, some spiritual awakening, to realize, wait a second, I shouldn't have acted that way. I don't want to be that kind of person. I don't want to do those things. So there has to be that form of pain. It doesn't have to be like some people need it. They have to be beat over the head, so to speak, in some way to seek out spirituality. So just want to make that clear. It doesn't mean that a person has to go through horrible things, but it's spiritual advancement. You wake up and you realize, I don't have all the answers. I can't figure it out on myself. There has to be some bigger picture out there beyond my five senses. So then Karen continues, in order to grow, we have to face and overcome certain challenges. A piece of coal remains a piece of coal unless it's put under intense pressure. Only then can it become a diamond. We all aspire to become a better version of who we are in this moment, but this can't happen unless we are willing to experience challenges. The journey to becoming a spiritual being, the diamond version of ourselves, doesn't happen without experiencing the pressure of pain. Okay. Oh, we have Hong Kong now, West Virginia, Wisconsin. Okay. Another Las Vegas. Okay. This is a surer bet than betting in the casinos. Okay. So let's start as we do every week. Great. Did I forget that also? Okay. All right. Okay. Do you mind? Wait, let me go. Okay. Now we can do it. So for those of you online, those of you here, we're going to say our affirmation together. We understand that the point of this is to engrave more deeply inside our heart and soul the truth of who we are and what our mission is in very simple terms. So those of you online, you can see it here. Those of you here, it's on the screen now. So let's say it together. Consciousness is everything. I raise my consciousness today to see the miracles and wonders of life. I commit myself to behave with greater love, compassion, and kindness towards all human beings. And I hope today we're even going to come to a new level of understanding why it has to be to everybody, So let's just start. We'll get into it. We'll do our meditation at the end, which will help solidify all of the consciousness we're about to hear. So because it is Easter, and it's a story of the resurrection, and in Kabbalistic teachings, you see throughout the Bible and various writings in the Zohar that the resurrection of the dead is something that has happened. In a simple way, as we'll learn today, it's happening every day for you and me. And on a grand scale, it's going to happen collectively. But let's just get started with an understanding. So in simple terms, what's resurrection? Talk about resurrection of the dead. It means somebody died, they're considered dead, and somehow, some way they were brought back to life. That's it. whether it's the story of Easter, whether it's a story in the Zohar. There's one story, there's a famous story, the biblical story of the prophet who became the man who became the prophet Habakkuk, was resurrected by Elisha, one of the prophets, when he was a young boy. So there's many other stories in the Zohar. There was a young boy who lost his father. His father died on a bed, in front of him. And he was a young boy. He jumped on his father's body. He cried to the Creator. And long story short, the father came back to life, right, to be with his son. So there's that in the big picture. The ultimate is somebody who's dead. And, if you think about it, in modern terms, what would you call somebody who was brain dead and then reawakened? Resurrection of the dead, right? If a person had a heart attack and their heart stops, and today we know a scientific method to do something similar, a little electrical shock, CPR, whatever, and you resurrect the person. So let's stick with that but I do want you to understand that there is the concept in Kabbalah that we will get to explain some of it, but just to see how it's happening all the time. Or there's the idea, we may not always call it resurrection, but if you think about when a person goes through, like we read from Karen, a traumatic experience, maybe it's a divorce, traumatic divorce, a terrible divorce, hurtful, painful divorce. And through that process, they wake up and realize, no, a little more kindness, a little more compassion, a little more what have you that way. You could say there was a form of resurrection. Or when a person, has a near-death experience and they wake up, but we hear it usually or often in the terms of a new lease on life. A new lease on life. Or sometimes you see an old rotten building. I don't know why it just came to my mind. Someone put on Facebook some old car that you could hardly make out. I don't even know what the model is because I didn't recognize it, but they see it in the junkyard, right? Old, rotted, all you could see was the body, almost rusted to pieces. And then they resurrect it, meaning what do? We call it restoring it. But if you think in those terms, what does restoring something mean? There was an original, it fell apart in one way or another, and then they brought it back to life. So in this case, restoring an old antique car, you're taking something that essentially was dead, and you resurrected it. You fixed it up, whatever it is, and you made it look like new. People who go through those various things, or an idea. How many things have been shelved along the way? I know I don't want to get into it, but various things. I've been at this 37 years in the center, and there were ideas that we came up with, let's say 30 years ago, that just weren't applicable back then. And so 30 years later, when the demographics of the center changed, when the state of the world changed, we in essence did what? Resurrected that idea, brought it back into being, and brought it to life. So the idea of resurrection is not as uncommon as we think. Sure, the CPR kind of example or near-death experience, those are very extreme. And the ultimate, where literally a body that's been in the ground for years, coming out of the ground alive, that's a little bigger picture, but I want you to understand, at least, whether you believe it or not, understand Kabbalah not only teaches it, but in a few minutes we're about to explain it, how that happens. But to grasp the idea, and more importantly, how are we going to make use of it? How is it going to come and help us? Because essentially now, what are we really saying? That the resurrection of the dead means to come to new life. New life. A person has a near accident. They're driving down the street, or maybe, like I knew a guy who actually, that's essentially what brought him to become a student of the center. He had his terrible accident where his car, whatever it was hit, rolled over, spun, this and this. And when he got up and he, walked out of this accident, all he had was a little bump on his arm. And you look back on the car and you see, for all reasonable intents and purposes, he should have been dead. In fact, the police, when they came to look at it, were shocked that all he had was like a bump on his arm, like that. But that woke him up from going down the path he was going. And I guess I could tell you without his name, but he was going down the wrong path. You decide for yourself what that looks like, but he's going down the wrong path. Wakes, steps out of the accident with just a bump, and he decides he's got to change his life. He's got to be a better person. He's got to go essentially come study spirituality, see what's on the other side of life. Well, we have new people here, so I guess it's a new story for you, but some of the people who've been around have heard it. The thing that pushed me into spirituality was also, it wasn't actually a near-death experience. It was a death experience, but it wasn't my death. It was my mother's death at that time as I was applying to medical school that made me decide that medicine didn't have technology to remove pain, suffering, and death from the world. So at that point, I decided I was going to explore and find out what was out there beyond our five senses, because probably like many of you, growing up, I had various, what you now call spiritual, mystical experiences, but I had no framework. I had no way to understand it. I had no terminology to explain it, but it was one of those moments. So when my mom died, I realized, you know what? Medicine was not going to be able to stop pain, suffering, and death. Simple. They didn't have the technology. So I started to look into spirituality, and eventually in 1987 came here to the Kabbalah Centre. So in one way or another, anytime you feel that you've had this reawakening of a new perspective in life, or a new energy in life, or you just survived something that you thought was almost life-threatening, that's a resurrection. Let's not make it overly complicated. Let's understand, because for me, that's essentially what the Kabbalah Centre is about. Okay, we'll get there too. So let's start like this. Okay, the Kabbalistic way of looking at this. Oh, good. So there's an endless world that everything started from. We have no way to understand how this endless world came about, because it's endless, meaning there was no beginning, no ending. So all we can grasp, according to the Kabbalists, is through metaphorical terms. We can relate to it through things in this world. So in the endless world, before the Big Bang, there was the Creator that was looking for a way, the Kabbalists say, to bestow its beneficence, all its goodness, which we call the light of the Creator, to give the light of the Creator to something that was about to create. Because that's the nature of the Creator. Whatever name you give, let's call it for today God, whatever name you give to God, the essence of God in reality is just to give goodness 24/7 unconditionally. So it created a container, which is our soul, and then gave this light force to fill this container called our soul. So since we do have new people, and there may be new people also online with us, let's just understand what that means. That means there is not a person on earth, not a person. For the moment, forget how they're behaving, good, bad, or indifferent. There is not a person on earth who does not contain within them the infinite light of the Creator. Meaning with all the powers we understand the Creator to have, the power to bless, to purify, to cleanse, to heal, to bring abundance, prosperity, whatever it is, take away the chaos, the negativity, the stress, any form of pain, the Creator has that power. The light of the Creator that's been given to us has that same power. In biblical terms, it's simply called we're created in the image and likeness of God. So that means every person is in the image and likeness of God. Now, for those of you saying, well, maybe that's why there are people out there who believe what we understand to be a false belief. Maybe that's why they can act good and bad, because God must act good and bad. No, we just said it a moment ago. The light of the Creator, like the physical light, can only illuminate. 100% of the time you walk in a dark room or a dark area, you turn on the light, what happens? The darkness goes away and illumination, clarity takes its place. The same thing with the light of the Creator. It just shines and will take away all darkness, pain, suffering, and death. The only, I guess, glitch in the system is we've been given free will. And that free will allows us to use the light of the Creator temporarily, either in a productive way or a destructive way. And if you look, like King Solomon wrote, for everything, essentially, for everything on the side of good, it can be used in a bad way. So one of the examples I often go to is Alfred Nobel, the creator of dynamite. Why did he create dynamite? He created dynamite so they could blast through a mountain, so they could build a trail or a route through the mountain. Instead of having to go around the mountain, takes longer or whatever, they could speed up transportation. Well, that's a good use. But people could also do what they did. They used it to blow up safes, to blow up buildings, etc. Is the dynamite at fault or the person using the dynamite at fault? It's the person. The person can use it to blast a hole through the mountain, to speed things up, allow people to travel faster from one place to another, etc., etc. Or it's the choice of the person to use it to blow up the safe or blow up the house or blow up a person. So we cannot blame the dynamite. But like King Solomon taught us, everything in this world can be used for both. So even the light of the Creator, if you now just understood that the only thing that gives life, the very breath that we all breathe to stay alive, to make the heart pump blood, etc., is the light of the Creator. So what keeps every human being alive is the light of the Creator. Therefore, also, people have free will to use that power to go out, speak badly to other people, do bad things to other people. They're essentially using the light of the Creator in a negative way. So you can't blame the light of the Creator. It's the same thing. It's how we make use of it, constructively or destructively. What you and I are learning here in the Kabbalah Centre is how to understand the consequence of our actions. Because like anything else, we would like to have free choice, but we'd also like to know in simple terms what's going to happen with the choice we make. Is that not true? Don't you want to know? If you had a choice, you're applying for a job and there's 2 jobs you could apply for, and you're a little concerned which one to choose. How are you going to decide? In simple terms, how do we decide? By what we believe the consequence, the result of taking each job will be. No, nobody takes the job that they know is going to be bad for them, not fun, terrible people, no good pay, no good benefits, and all like that. So who would take that as a choice? Same thing you would say with relationships. If a person's feeling, there's 2 people they're thinking about having a relationship with, they're not going to pick the one that they could already see is going to be mean to them, nasty, rotten, all of that. So the choice essentially is trying to see what the ultimate consequence or result of those choices are. So the same thing, what you and I are learning is the immutable universal laws, because if you think back, if everybody has a piece of the Creator and there's only one Creator, then as we often talk about here in the center, what the Kabbalah Centre is teaching us is the technology of the soul. And that technology is the same no matter who you are. Whatever religion you grew up in, whatever color you are, race, nationality, what have you, the operating system of the soul is the same. Our free will is how we use the soul. But the only thing in common, and it is the only thing, is the soul. So the operating system is the same. So these universal teachings of Kabbalah will work for everybody. All they have to do is pause for a moment and see how it fits their particular situation. And sometimes that's the hardest thing to do, because we have that opponent voice in our head that's challenging us to be selfish, fearful, insecure, and all the rest of the negative behaviors. And that's the free will. Free will starts here in our head. It doesn't start outside. It's here in our head. I have the choice. Listen to the voice of my opponent that's taunting and tempting me to behave in a negative way, or overcome that by listening to the voice of my soul that's telling me the right thing to do. Like we affirm, kindness, love, and compassion. Because, especially today, I don't think there's many people on earth who don't understand the law of cause and effect. Like attracts like. What goes around comes around. So it doesn't matter what other people do. What matters is what I do. Because what I do will go out into the universe and come back to me. So if the other person did something rotten, and I do something rotten in response, yeah, they have their own circuit of energy that's going to bring back some rotten challenge to them. But if I behave like them, I'm going to have my own return in that same way. So I want to put out love, kindness, and compassion, or forgiveness and tolerance, so that that will come back to me. And don't say, yeah, but it's going to come back to them also. No, everybody has their own unique cause and effect circuitry and their own unique cause and effect delivery system. So even though you could be standing right next to each other, you're going to get what you put out in the world, they're going to get what they put out in the world. Also, if you're far away, you're on opposite sides of the earth, and you're still holding anger or resentment or guilt about somebody on the other side of earth, it's still your circuitry. Whatever the guilt or shame or hurt or resentment is going to come back to you, even though that person is physically, literally on the other side of the world. So we came into this world for only one reason. And like I often share, took me 37 years to figure out how how simple this all is. Because 37 years it took to unblock or uncomplicate all my thinking. Because if you look, okay, I spoke yesterday a little bit with a group. Okay, you sure? Okay. You know, the law of the universe, and it's in every religion, the idea of tithing. Give 10% of your income, because they say everything comes from the Creator, from your source. So give 10% back. So 10% easy to calculate. Person makes $1 million, they give away 10%, $100,000. The tax law in America, to figure out how much a person owes in taxes, why can't it just be simple like that? 10%, whatever you made, less your charitable deductions, pay 10%. Think how easy that would be. No, they've got, I don't know what it is anymore, probably 100,000 pages of tax law to figure out what you owe the government. No, spirituality is very simple. The light is very simple. So the only reason we left the endless world was to come down here and imitate the Creator. That's it. Take all the light that's inside of us and shine it out. And as we do that, what do we get? Even as we're talking about today, there's a resurrection. Because what happened to the 100% of our kindness? The Creator put inside of us 100% kindness. Now, if you're here, or you're here watching, or you're a student of the center, let's be fair, and let's say you're manifesting 70% of that kindness. That means 30% of your potential kindness is not being revealed. So where is it? It's sitting inside of us, hidden behind what? Resentment, anger, judgment, hatred. That's what's hiding the other 30% of our kindness. So we came down here simply to make the effort that when we're feeling unkind, because then that's the covering over kindness, our job is when we're feeling unkind, stop, and then just push the light of kindness by consciousness. Just think, I'm shining the light of kindness out of my heart and soul towards that person. The one that triggered my sense of unkindness, I'm shining it through them and out from them out to the world. Now, don't let that statement make you think that what Kabbalah is teaching you is, oh, so that person did something not kind, activated a feeling of unkindness in you, and therefore you're just going to lay down like a doormat and let them walk all over you as you're shining this light of kindness. No, think, like we say, consciousness is everything. If you're standing in a dark room, what is your only protection against darkness? Light. Light a match, turn on a pen light, flashlight, the room lights, whatever it may be. Light will protect you from darkness. So let's say, because to fit what example we're using, so let's say you got this big, huge ballroom, and you're sitting in the absolute dark because there's no windows, and you light a small match. So you created a sphere of light, let's say 2 feet wide, 2 feet around. On the other side of those 2 feet is still the darkness. But that darkness can't get in to that sphere of light. So if you're standing in the presence of that person who did something unkind that triggered your 30% hidden aspect of kindness, but covered by that sense of unkindness, so they triggered your unkindness, and you're shining light of kindness now out. They're still in the darkness. But you're now in a sphere of light, which means you feel less of the angst and the pain of the unkindness. You have greater clarity and more blessings and guidance from the light of your soul. And your destiny from that is now, let's just make it, you're now 75% of your total. So you just boosted your kindness energy 5%, which means what are you going to attract? 5% more kindness. You drive down the street. How do people show you kindness? They let you in. Maybe you thought, you almost missed the exit or whatever, and suddenly you got to cut over, and there's a line of people. One person lets you in. You go to the supermarket, same kind of thing. Somebody ahead of you got 20 items. You got one. This is the only line, and they look at you. They have 2 options, right? They could just say, no, I'm first in line. Or they could be kind and say, here, let me let you go first because I see you're going to only have 1 item. You understand? So kindness can come back to us in many, many different ways. But it always pays us in every way, shape, or form to shine more light. We're protected from the other person's darkness. They can now not awaken more unkindness in us because we're shining more light. So they can still act unkind, still say or do the same sorts of things they were just doing. It's not going to affect us the same way because we have less wound, less blockage of the unkindness. What happened in that moment, though? The moment we shined 5% more of kindness or love or generosity or humility or tolerance or gratitude, we resurrected an aspect of our soul that's been sitting inside of us from the beginning of time. Because every time we acted unkind, even if we thought with the help of that opponent it was justified, well, they said a nasty thing, why shouldn't I say something nasty back? Something unkind. The logic of the world, sure, go ahead. But the spiritual law says cause and effect. You act unkind, then unkind things have to keep happening until you've broken those coverings of unkindness with more light of kindness. When you're shining 100% of your light of kindness, then nothing and no one can make you feel unkind anymore because you have no more unkindness. If you appreciated every moment of the day, true appreciation of the light that you have, that you reveal, that you see everywhere, then nothing can make you feel jealous. What's to feel jealous about if you appreciate everything that happens? Okay, since we got so many new people here, I'm going to do this. How many of you have right now a toothache? Any of you new people? No toothache, yes? Now, here's the thing, and you don't have to answer, because I sat in that seat. It was almost a little embarrassing at first. 10 minutes ago, did you really have a conscious thought of appreciation that you don't have a toothache? No, we don't think that way. We're looking for the next thing. You understand? Which means then we haven't revealed 100% of our appreciation. Don't take it in a bad way, but use it as motivation, inspiration. If I appreciated every moment of the day that I have no toothache, then essentially I'd never get a toothache. You understand the idea? That way. Yes, so the universe would bring me a challenge in another way for whatever other part of my soul's light is not revealed yet. Maybe it's a little fear, insecurity, something like that. So I have to have something come to me that wakes up that blockage, let's call it, of insecurity, so I can pause and say, wait a second, I have the infinite light of the Creator sitting inside me. It can't go away, doesn't go away. There's no way, shape, or form it can leave me. Why should I have insecurity? The only reason I can feel insecure is because I block the light of security of the light of the Creator. So if I start to shine that out into the world, no, I'm sure the process I'm going through is the right thing for me to evolve. Like Karen said, the pressure to turn me as a block of coal into a diamond. I have certainty in that process, and I'm sure. I have trust that this thing that I'm going through now, as I will go with the process, will turn me into that diamond. Let me reveal all the 100% that's hiding inside me. So everything is coming our way to resurrect, like to bring into life, because technically every time we block the light or have blocked the light, it's a form of death. Because true life comes from the light of the Creator. And that's why if you go back to the Garden of Eden, and again, you don't have to believe it, but at least be open-minded to the Kabbalistic technology. You and me as Adam and Eve, that original being, we were meant to live 1,000 years. That's why you see people in the beginning of the Bible, they lived in their 900s and things like that. And the way I grew up is in Reformed Judaism, okay, it's some kind of story, like a fable, right? Who would believe somebody lived 900 years? Oh, and then it got less and less and less and less. But isn't it interesting? Whatever it was 100 years ago, it started to get more and more. The trouble is we blamed it on science, right? Science found a way to help us not have so many diseases or whatever it was and extend our life. No, it's because we have 1,000-year potential, and at some point we have to go back and live that 1,000 years. So every time we do something to unblock the light of our soul by turning the feeling of hatred to an act of love, the feeling of jealousy to an act of appreciation or gratitude, the feeling of resentment to forgiveness, the feeling of insecurity to security, things like that. Guilt, turn it into apology. Go apologize to the person with light. Remove your guilt. Whether they accept it or not is their issue, not yours. But you've now awakened, resurrected that aspect of your soul. You let it shine, and like we said, a lease on life, a new life. You know, why do they call people born again? That phrase, born again, what does it mean, born again? They're in the same body. They're in the same body. There is a distinction, while I'm bringing it up, there is a distinction between resurrection that we're talking about today and reincarnation. Reincarnation is the soul left the body, and it comes back in another body. But when a person is born again, or as we're talking about resurrection, same body, it's just a new consciousness, a higher consciousness, a new lease on life. And it happens in many ways. People go through tragedy, and then suddenly they wake up and they say, you know what? They have to go help other people when they've gone through difficult things. Mothers Against Drunk Driving, how did it get started? By a woman who lost a child to a drunk driver. I'm sure before her there were people who lost their children to drunk driving. But it didn't wake them up to say, let me create an organization or do something collectively to help the collective society to prevent drunk drivers from killing people. But that woman woke up, resurrection of kindness, compassion, care, concern for other people. It was always inside her, as it's always inside you and me. The issue is, when do we let it out? So what we're learning here in the center is how to speed up the letting it out. Don't wait for tragedy. Don't wait for trauma. Look at yourself right now. Could you not identify any one of those non-light-like behaviors in yourself? Or am I the only one who needs to fix myself? Right? We have perfect people in the room. They're shining light like I've never seen. I didn't want to say it before and embarrass them, but you know how you see the pictures with the radiance shining out, these big auras? That's what they all look like. So me, I still have stuff left. You know what I'm saying? That's all we're learning to do. Identify what you've got. Don't let the opponent. For many of you, that's a new understanding that you have implanted. We implanted it. And just give you a quick metaphor, you know, when you play a video game, if the video game had no challenger, how fun would it be? If the video game had no opponent, there were no obstacles in the video game, would it be a fun game? No. You win, you win, you win. What fun would that be? The only fun is when you beat the opponent. So the same in life. We planted voluntarily in our head this opponent, that our purpose and our ultimate destiny is to beat it, to overcome it. There's no way it can win. We have all the wherewithal because we have 100% light. It's a form of darkness. You turn on enough light, all the darkness goes away. We just have to use our free will to do that. That's the issue. So it's taunting us to stay in the dark by continuing to act in a non-godlike or light-like way. Meaning the anger, the jealousy, the greed, the insecurity, the guilt, the shame, etc. That's it. That's why the Kabbalists teach us consciousness is everything. And what has been called the War of Armageddon, the last final war, in Kabbalistic terms, Milchemet Gog uMagog means the war of thoughts. It doesn't mean the war with anybody out there. On a truly practical and ultimately deep Kabbalistic level, nobody has an enemy outside of them. That doesn't mean people outside of us aren't meanwhile misbehaving. I'm not saying that. I'm not blind to what goes on in the world. But the only enemy we have that's holding us back is here. That voice that's telling us, be fearful, be scared, be insecure, hold on to your guilt and shame and all of that. That's the enemy, not the people. And I'm not telling you have to hang out with them either. But if you don't send them light, you're hanging out with them no matter where you are. Because like attracts like. We have to come to understand that. Like attracts like. So then this whole concept of resurrection is just simply unblocking the light that's inside of us. Let it be resurrected. Come to the surface. Shine out. Bring you blessing. How many of you don't want to have eternal bliss? I know everybody going, what a stupid question. Of course we all want eternal bliss. But our actions don't show it. Why? Because we're still giving into, I have to control my life. But let me prove to you that we don't control our life. The only thing we do control, like we said, choosing the thought of the two streams of consciousness in our head, choosing the thought to follow. That's the control we have. We can either follow the voice of that opponent and do all the reactive things and unfortunately cover or intensify the covering over our soul's light, which is eternal bliss, or we can choose to listen to the voice of our soul and do those actions which uncover the light of eternal bliss. That's the control we have. So here's the proof. Are you ready? You're not ready yet? Tell me when you're ready. Okay, good. Have you ever had anything unexpected, good or bad, happen to you? Anything, good or bad? Yes or yes? Yeah. Of course. Well, how did you control that? Where was your control that made that happen? If it was unexpected, it means you didn't think it into being. It happened. So why do we think that I controlled any aspect of my life? The only control, in essence, we have is, like we said, which voice to choose to follow and act upon. Once you act upon it, we really have no control, no matter what your five senses show you. We have no control over what happens, what the result, the consequence. And I know because you're new, your voices say, oh, no, no. You remember how hard you worked for that job, for that education, to get that sale, whatever it is you achieved. You worked hard, you got that reward. Okay, it may look like that, but it may not be either. How can you say it was that work you did? Maybe you were already destined from a past life to have that thing. And all you were doing was stepping into that life, like following the script in a movie. How do you know? Because sometimes, how about this? I had somebody recently who was telling me, one of their children has all this amazing talent and ability and always been first in this and first in that and great in this and great in that, and was applying to a school that they thought was better than the school they're in, and figured, of course, so good, so great grades, so many awards and this, it's like a shoe-in. You understand the idea? Didn't happen. Didn't happen. Now, do you think at a moment like that, the person is thinking, how did I make that not getting in happen? Did we ever stop and ask when something not so pleasant happened? How did I make that happen? No, we don't ask that. What does the opponent tell us to do? Blame the other person. How did my bad feeling come about? Because they said something bad. They did something bad. So that's how my bad feeling came about. Did you stop and say, wait a second, cause and effect. Why did it come to me? How was I behaving in a way that left a magnetic field, that left an opening for this person to come and do and say that? Because if I know where the door is open, I don't know where the door is, or I deny there's such a door I left open, could you ever close it? No. So then why would you be surprised if more and more of the same things happen? Spiritually, you leave a door open, some kind of spiritual thief is going to come in. Push your button of anger, push your button of fear, push your button of jealousy, push your button of lack and limitation and guilt and shame. But even when you say that, whose button is it? We just said. And you talk about it. We all say, yeah, they push my buttons, push my button. So it's my button. If I don't have the button, they can't push it. So yeah, I left the door open, they came and pushed the button. Yes, bad on them to come push my button, but that's their cause and effect. Bad for me, heaven forbid, if I just respond to that button push, and again, scream, yell, fight, bite, whatever it may be. No, I want to know what that button is and what that door is I left open. By shining more light, less ability for anybody to make me feel anything but eternal bliss. So this is why, in Kabbalistic terms, even if you want to take it just as a spiritual concept, the ultimate resurrection of the dead, and I know for sure in Judaism and in Christianity, and I believe also in Islam, I'm not sure about the Eastern religions, but they must have something similar because it's a universal law, that ultimately everybody that you think is dead is going to resurrect. They're going to come out of the grave. They're going to be, what should we call it? Rebuilt, like from a stem cell. The concept of stem cell, right? Okay, just that you'll get the idea, because I know people going, wow, this is really crazy stuff. What do you mean the dead are going to rise and this and this? So let's think in simple terms. How did you and I physically come into this world? Your parents, your biological parents, mom and dad, mom brought her egg, dad brought the sperm, and what happened? They put it together. And from that microscopic, here, you do this, You're throwing off tens of thousands of cells. Two microscopic cells got together, and after 9 months, you and I showed up. So imagine in the grave is also that stem cell of the essence of every human being that went into the grave. So now imagine where there's enough revealed light in the cosmos, then that stem cell that's in the grave is going to be awakened like the egg and the sperm that come together. The body will develop just a little faster than 9 months, and the person will come out of the womb called the grave. If you think in those terms, it's not so difficult to grasp. Whether, again, you still believe it or not, that's your choice. But at least understand it's not as far out as people may have thought, because we see it happen all the time. All the time. So we want to start waking up this idea of resurrecting ourselves. And it's interesting because I checked. So if you think about it, today is Easter. For those people, some of you out there also, who may have that as your holy day. For the Jews, the time of Passover. And for the Muslims, the time of Ramadan. And this year, right now, they all coincide. So if you think now and you look at the big picture and you say, there are no accidents, synchronicity is a sign of great power and possibilities. So the fact that Judaism, Christianity, and Islam all have major holy days, which in Kabbalah means energy, a powerful energy day or time period from the light of the Creator. So this is the time we can awaken resurrection of the dead collectively. So it's the time that we can start resurrecting ourselves. And like we said, keep it simple. Just shine your light. You drive down the street, consciously think, shining my light, shining my light. That's also resurrection. Because yesterday you didn't think about that while you're driving. You're driving safe. What's this driver doing? This and this and this. But you're not thinking consciously shine light to them. So it's a form of resurrection. So let's start resurrecting ourselves and then follow that light wherever it leads us. And then as we do that and we gather billions of people together to do the same thing, because we're only one soul on a spiritual internet. There's no such thing really as 8 billion souls. We're all interconnected like this internet is interconnected. That you cannot block, you cannot take yourself off it or whatever. So as you and I are resurrecting ourselves, we're putting energy of resurrection out on the spiritual internet to 8 billion people. And those 8 billion people having an awakening of the desire to bring more of their light out. And that's why when we finish here in a couple minutes, we're going to do meditation on one of these names of God to help us do that. But let's just take this time, decide and commit ourselves that we want resurrection. We want to be eternally blissed out. We have the capability to be because the Creator gave it to us. Not that we have to create something new, we just have to reveal what's inside of us. And the more of us that are shining light and bringing more people, if you think in those terms, we're just recreating heaven on earth. The Garden of Eden is heaven on earth. We lived in it, we pushed ourselves out of it, and the resurrection of the dead will put us back in it. So if we take this time of holy energy, powerful cosmic energy, and we just commit ourselves and decide, do we want to resurrect ourselves? And we want to awaken the power of resurrection so that people will want to act with more kindness, love, and compassion because they'll feel it from within. Then what are we doing? We are doing what we came here to do. Simply imitate the Creator, live in the Garden of Eden because we've created or recreated, if you will, heaven on earth, and we can all live with that eternal bliss. May it happen in our time soon. God bless. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Okay. So, those of you know, this is the time that we bless our offering. The main thing, the mission of the center, and if you don't have one of these, I would encourage you to get one. It's called the Zohar. It's a pocket-sized piece of the Zohar, so everybody can carry it all over, right, everywhere. And I think, well, I share every week. Last year, we handed out, because the ultimate mission is to spread these all over the world. So, because it shines light. It's just a book of light. In fact, the word Zohar means illumination, the brightest light. So it just shines the light of the Creator. And like we've said in various ways, when there's enough light in the world, darkness disappears. And when the darkness disappears, nobody will have a reason to act with hatred or anger or resentment or jealousy, because they'll see what it brings back to them. And then they'll see if they act with kindness, love, and compassion, that will bring back the blessings that they're really looking for and that sense of fulfillment. So this is why we take now, it's the offering. Those of you online, let me do that. Yes, I know how to do that. Yes, I've learned. Let's see, here we go. Okay, so we'll do our meditation. Then those of you online can go to the site and you can make your donation there. Those of you here, money is energy, so we're just going to hold it in our hand, short blessing, and then we'll do our meditation on the Yud Chaf Shin. So we just want to have gratitude, because money is a vessel, and whatever we fill it with, that's what it's going to bring back to us. So especially today in this interconnectedness of holy days, of various religions, which is another opportunity to see cosmic is bringing us to the power of unity and oneness. Work together, work in unity, and work in love. So we inject this, fill this gift with our gratitude, our love, appreciation for all our blessings. We know that gratitude will breed gratitude, appreciation breeding more appreciation, because it brings us more things to appreciate. And so we know through the projects of the Center to spread this wisdom of Kabbalah and these books of the Zohar, we bring the ultimate, we're empowering the ultimate goal of the end of all pain, suffering, and death. To remove all difficulty, all divisiveness, and ultimately all tragedy. And as we open our heart and we put our love in it, we empower it and we accelerate the process that goes through this offering out into the world, speeding up the awakening of all humanity, and speeding up the return of the many blessings that it can bring us in many ways, shape, or form, for our ultimate good, peace, and lasting fulfillment. And together we say, Amen. So those of you here, okay, yes, sorry for the way it looks. That's my technology. For those of you online, but you can see the three letters. Now, for those of you who are new, yes, they look like Hebrew letters or Aramaic letters. In this case, Yud, Chaf, Shin. But the Kabbalists teach us in various ways that what we call the Hebrew letters are just portals to the light of the Creator, which means they just shine. It's funny, you don't hear much about it anymore, but fiber optics, right, is a very thin, hair-thin wire or what have you, and it just channels light, right? You put light on one end, it goes through and channels light. So these are like fiber optics to the endless world. They are universal. If you go to the biblical story of the Tower of Babel and you read it carefully, even though it's coded, it says all the world was one language. Because from the time of Adam and Eve until that Tower of Babel, everybody spoke Hebrew, because the Hebrew letters are the DNA of our soul. And therefore the vocalization of those frequencies are what we've defined as the Hebrew language. So the DNA is still there. We may not speak Hebrew or know Hebrew, but we can look at the shapes, and by combining these together, what it's doing is reawakening what is called like the embryonic state. Like a baby embryo, right, is pure and perfect inside the womb in that way. So it's to wake up our pure and perfect unity. like reactivate, if you will, our spiritual stem cells of unity. So just look at them, Yud Chaf Shin. Let the shapes be engraved in your mind's eye. And then we're going to make use of this reawakening of the unity of humanity to accelerate that process of removing all of the chaos. Yud Chaf Shin. So if I can ask you to sit comfortably in your seat, feet flat on the floor, hands in your lap. Taking a few deep breaths to relax into the light of the Creator. Breathing in through your nose. Hold the breath for a moment. Exhale through your mouth. Just allowing the breath of life, which is a container for the light of the Creator, to activate a new level, a higher level of the light inside you, bringing it to the surface of your consciousness. Feel relaxed, allowing the flow of light through you to be stronger, more conscious and intense. That creates a bigger impact in your life and the life of others. Allow yourself to feel wrapped in the spiritual blanket of unconditional love of the light. The embrace metaphysically of the Creator. And together we envision the Yud Chaf Shin, those three energy forces just above your head. Envision a beam of light from the endless world, channeling down into these three energy forces, Yud Chaf Shin. See them glowing with bright white light. Feel the vibration of love and unity. Know that this combination of energies, Yud Chaf Shin, has the ability to bring pure unity, revelation of your pure and perfect self, and the pure and perfect self of the one soul the Creator created that exists in 8 billion bodies in this planet. And now slowly allow the Yud Chaf Shin, shining with this light, vibrating with this power. Let it enter through the top of your head, and then let it flow, travel from head to toe. Yud Chaf Shin, and this amazing light shining out of it, reawakening, resurrecting the pure light of the Creator inside every cell of your being. from head to toe, rejuvenating, regenerating every part of your body, physically and spiritually, every aspect of your piece of the Creator being awakened, unblocked, and allowing to shine. Whatever difficulty weighs heaviest on your mind, in this moment ask while the light is shining. Ask for guidance and clarity. Ask for the power to follow the guidance, which will be in one manner or another overcoming the challenge of that opponent in your head, the logical, rational thoughts of why to hold on to that blockage, that negative emotion. Ask for the answer, the revelation, the inspiration, and the strength to follow what your soul tells you to do. Record that inspiration. Record what you're being told or shown so that it stays with you from this moment forward. And now envision a beam of light of the Yud Chaf Shin shining out of your heart. Shine it out through all the people in whatever situation that heaviness has been activated. Shine it directly to their heart and soul. Yud Chaf Shin awakening inside them the embryonic power of their piece of the Creator. Know with certainty it's bringing about a change in consciousness. But don't look for an immediate change in their outer behavior. Know that it's awakening new light inside them. And now see through them, sending your beam of light through their heart and soul out to the rest of your friends and family, to all your acquaintances, and then out to the heart and soul of every human being on earth. So that from your point of view, you are connected with all the pure light that exists inside the heart and soul of every human being on earth. Connecting to the totality of the light of the Creator that is your potential. And see your world from your point of view, shining bright, filled with light, with only the light surrounding all humanity and the planet. Take a moment to be aware of that new vibration, that greater sense of peace and serenity that you're feeling now. As you're channeling light from above, through you, to all the world. Record the vision, the feelings, the inspiration. Yud Chaf Shin, the power to bring us back into that embryonic state of oneness with love and kindness, compassion. And together we'll take one more deep breath, solidifying it in our heart, soul, and mind, and slowly exhale and open your eyes. Those of you online, thank you for joining us. Those of you here, thank you. It's nice to meet new friends. Yes, thank you. God bless.
Thank you for joining us. If you liked what you saw, subscribe to this channel that you'll be notified when we post new videos. Share the video with your friends, they can also benefit. And check out the website, www.kabbalah.com, that's Kabbalah, for hundreds of articles and classes. Wish you an amazing day, and God bless.